Hi everyone and welcome. We're so excited to have you here as you start your journey towards New York City Specialized High School Admissions Test SHSAT. In this video, we'll be doing a math lesson which is going to build the foundation you'll need to get a top score. Before we begin, make sure to have a pen and a notebook ready with you because we're going to be writing a lot of different techniques and strategies, so make sure to note them down. Also, if you cannot afford expensive tutoring, don't worry. We have a lot of different practice tests and free lessons in our app, so make sure to download our app after you're done with this lesson. Plus, our app gives predictive tests, which is actually going to give you a real feel of what the SHSAT exam is going to feel like. So without any further ado, let's get started. So in this lesson, we're going to learn tax calculation, simple interest calculation, all of which are not just important for SHSAT prep, but also for your daily life. We also have markup and markdown prices, so basically when prices increase or decrease due to a discount maybe. Also about percentage commission and percentage change. So here are 5 topics that we are going to go through. Let's just get on with it. Let's look at the first question. Sarah went shopping and bought items worth $150. If the sales tax is 8%, how much does she need to pay including tax? So because the question said that she needs to pay items worth $150, let's first figure out what the entire amount of the tax is, okay? So what should the tax be? We can write the tax is going to be $150 times the amount of sales tax. So because the sales tax is 8%, we can write that as 8 over 100. And in doing so, we can now cancel out the zeros, and also we can use the times table for 5 times 3, 5 times 2, and again 2 times 1, 2 times 4. So that means it's 3 times 4, which is 12. So $12 is the tax. Now, how much does she need to pay including tax? So the total amount should be the amount of tax, which was 12, and the initial amount, which is 150. So together that makes it $162. All right? That was question number 1. Let's move on to the next question. Mark rents an apartment with 5% rental tax on the total payment. Okay, so that's 5%. We can either write 5% as 5 over 100, or as we know, if we want to convert that to a decimal, it can also be equal to 0.05. Okay. Now, if he pays a total of $18.90 including tax, so we already know the total amount of money that he is going to pay, which is $18.90, and that is what? That is including tax. The original amount plus the including tax. What is the monthly payment for the apartment before the tax is applied? So in order to say what the monthly payment should be, we can say that let the monthly payment be X, okay? So if the monthly payment is X, every single month he needs to pay X plus he pays tax, right? So the tax is what? The tax is 0.05 of the monthly payment. So 0.05 times X. And now what? Now we just need to solve for the value for X. Because there's nothing in front of X, we can imagine there's a 1 here. So 1 plus 0.05, that means 1.05 X equals 1890. Now putting 1.05 to the other side makes it a division. So divided by 1.05. Now if you just basically simplify it, to do that, we can get rid of the decimal. And to get rid of the decimal, we multiply it with 1 and 2 zeros because there are 2 numbers next to the decimal. Had it been 3 numbers next to the decimal, we would have written, times 1,000. So similarly, I'm also going to do times 100 over here. So now what? Now we do 189,000 over 105. All you now need to do is just simplify, and your final answer to this is going to be 1,800, okay? That is the amount of the monthly payment that he needs to pay before the tax is applied. Let's move on to the next question. Here's a practice question for you. Like all of the other lessons, we do have some practice questions in the middle of each lesson. The main reason here is for you to take a screenshot, or you can also take, you can pause the video, try doing this on your notebook or your note copy, and then check whether you do get $16.18 as your final answer, okay? I hope that you do get the answer correctly. Let's move on to the next question. If Diana invests $3,000 in the bank at a rate of 4.5% for 6 years, how much simple interest will he make? First of all, we need to know the formula for simple interest. So that is I equals P N R, okay? Where I stands for the interest, P is the principal. Principal means the initial amount of money that you either invest into the bank or you borrow from the bank. So here the initial amount is what? That's $3,000, right? N is the number of years, okay? The number of years for which all of this is happening. So how many years is my maths, or is this thing happening, the incident happening? According to the question, it's given 6 years. So N is going to be 6. And R stands for interest rate, okay? So according to the question that we have, what is the interest rate? The interest rate is 4.5%. So you can either write 4.5%, or what does 4.5% mean? If you convert it to a percentage, from a percentage to a decimal, you do need to divide it with 100, and in doing that you are going to convert or make that decimal point go 2 units to the left, which automatically gives me 0.045. okay, so now what? Now if we want to know the value for I, interest, it's going to be PNR. So 300 times 6 times, you could also write, by the way, you could also keep 4.5 over 100 as it is, so that you can now cancel out these zeros. See? So it depends on what you want to do, okay? And then you're going to do 18 times 4.5. So if you do the math completely, your final answer is going to be $810, all right? Let's now move on to the next question. Morgan invested $4,250 with a 5% interest rate. If he made a profit of $1,275, how long must he have had the money invested? So here it's also a question of interests. However, it's asking for how long it will take, right? So how long means time. So in order for us to calculate time, it means that because the formula is I equals PNR, the question is asking what is the value for N, okay? So let me just first of all write the formula down, which is I equals PNR. And next, it's saying that the Morgan has invested 1,275. So no, he invested 4,250, but he made a profit of this. So he made a profit of this means that that is his interest, and because he invested this initially, that is the principal, and 5% interest rate is R, right? So let me just bring all of these together. That is 1,275 here equals, in the case of P, I'm going to write 4,250 times N times, for the R, it's going to be 5% interest rate. So I know 5% can be written as 5 over 100, which means that I can now cancel these out. I can also write 5 times 1 and 5 times 2. So now if I do cross multiplication, if I just take N here, 425 over 2 is getting times with N on the right side. Moving that to the left side is now going to make it division, right? So that is 1,275 divided by 425 over 2, or times 2 over 425. Now all you do here is just simplify. You can of course cancel out 1,275 and 425 with 5s, and so on and so on. If you do that continuously, the value will come out as 6. So that means he must have had the money invested for a total of 6 years. Okay, so that was what? That was Morgan's question. Let's look at another one. So at what interest rate would you need to invest $10,000 to make $14,800 in 8 years? Okay, so first of all, what I can do here is I would need to know the amount of interest, okay? So because it's saying that I am going to invest how much? $10,000, and in total the amount is going to be this. So this is my principal, this is my amount, but what is my interest? Amount is basically principal plus interest. So if I wouldn't want to know the interest, that means I would have to do amount minus principal, which means I would have to do 14,800 minus 10,000. And in doing that, it's going to give me $4,800. Now what? At what interest rate? So of course the question is asking for R, right? The interest rate, remember? So as we know, I equals P N R. We can now put everything into order. In the case of I, I'm going to write 4,800. In the case of P, I'm going to write 10,000. In the case of N, I'm going to write 8, and R will be as it is. Let me now try to figure out the value for R, which is going to be 4,800 over 10,000 times 8. Now I have to get rid of the zeros. I can also get rid of 8 and 48. So that's 8 times 1, 8 times 6. 6 over 100 is, of course, 6%, right? So that is my final answer for interest rate. Okay. We, of course, have a practice question here. Of course, once again, related to simple interest, the topic that we just have covered. I do hope that you do get an answer of 5.6% when you're done with it. Let's move on. A dealer paid $9,600 for an old car. A salesperson sold the car for 30% more than the dealer paid. The salesperson received a commission of 40% of the profit made by the sale. What was the salesperson's gain? So first of all, I would need to know the profit that is made by the sale, okay? So what is the amount of profit? First of all, how much was it? It was $9,600 to begin with. On top of the $9,600, he sold it for 30% more than the dealer paid. So if I do 30% of $9,600, I'm going to get the profit, right? Let's now simplify, get rid of the zeros. So 96 times 3 is going to be 280. With an extra 0 is going to be 2,000. No, 96 times 3 is 288, okay? Let me erase it so that it's easier for you to understand what I wrote. So 96 times 3 is 288, and because there's a 0, we are just going to add the 0 over here, okay? So that is my initial amount of profit. Now, how much did the salesperson get? The salesperson got a 40% commission of the profit, right? So the amount of commission, let me just write com here, is going to be what? 40%, which is 40 over 100, times the profit, which is 2880. Now if we simplify the zeros, and again these, so we are going to do 288 times 4. 8 times 4 is 32, carry the 3. Then 8 times 2, 8 times 4 is again 32 plus then so it is a total of 5, then 1 and 1. Yeah, so the total amount of commission is $1,152. Okay, let's now move on to the next question. Jack receives a 12% commission on his sales. For the last 3 months, he earned a commission of $9,600. What were his average sales per month nearest to 10 for that period? Okay, so the question asked for the average sales. Let's first figure out the total sales, okay? So let's say the total sales is X, okay? Let the total sales be X. So because we're doing 12% commission, so 12% means what? 12% means 0.12. So on top of the sales, he is getting 12% as commission. So can I say 12%, which was 0.12 of the X, is going to be the amount of commission, which is 9,600? That is what we can do, right? So now all you have to do is just put 0.12 to the other side. That's going to make it a division. So divided by 0.12. If you do that, the value is going to be 80,000. But the question asks for average sales. So what is the formula for average sales or average anything? Average anything has a formula of the total being the number of values divided by the number of values, okay? The total of anything divided by the number of values. So average sales per month is going to be the total sales divided by the number of months. So in this case, the total sales is what? 80,000 over what were the number of months for the last 3 months. It's already mentioned here. So divided by 3. If you do the math here, you are going to get 26666 and so on, something like this. However, the question asked for nearest to 10. What were the average sales per month nearest to 10? What does that mean? That means you need to round it off, okay? You need to round off the very last digit. So that's how many dollars? $26670. Did you understand why I rounded it off to 70? Because the last digit, which is 7, is of course greater, much greater than 4. Whenever we have a number that's greater than 4, we are supposed to add 1 with the previous number, okay? So therefore, when we did 80,000 over 3, if you do the long division, it's going to be 2666666.6667. So there's like a number that's like going on and on and on and on, okay? So in order to simplify it and to bring to the nearest 10, that is what we can do. So there's so many things that you most definitely need to consider while you're sitting for your exam, right? Next, let's look at a practice question, of course. Once again, we have a question based on whatever we've just done, depending on sales and commission and whatnot. I hope that you do get this answer. Okay, let's move on to the next question now. A retailer wants to make a 30% profit on a product that costs them $50. Okay, so the cost is 50. He wants to make 30% profit on it. Okay, so in that case, if I want to make a 30% profit on the costs, so let's just do that. What was the cost again? The cost was $50. And on top of the $50, you are adding 30%. So what should I do? I am going to do 50 plus 30% or 30 over 100 times 50. Okay, now let's just simplify this. 0 and 0, 0 and 0. 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 50 is $65. So after adding the 30% profit, this is what we have. Now, if he wants to make an offer, if he wants to offer a 15% discount, what is the price the retailer should set to make a 30% profit? So because the selling price must be now what? The selling price must be now $65. That is what we know for sure. If we want to now, set the price as something, so let's say the retailer is setting the price at X dollars, okay? Let the price be X dollars. Therefore, because now he's offering a 15% discount, it should be X minus 15% of X, or we can just write 15 over 100X equals, now the selling price is what? 65. So that's 1 minus 15 by 100, which is, if you want to do 1 minus 15 by 100, let's look at the first numerator and denominator as 100 over 100. So if I do 100 minus 15, that is 85 over 100. X equals 65. Let's do the rest here. So that means it's 65 equals, X equals 65 times 100 over 85, right? Okay, so now you just do the math. You do 65 over 85. You can simplify using what? Using 5, of course. So that's 13 over 17. So that is 1300 over 17 in total. If you do that, you can write your answer in decimals or fractions, whatever. So the price is going to be $76.47. Okay? So that is it for this question. Let's look at the next one. Okay, now we have markup and markdowns. This is like another different topic. Of course, it's very important for your daily life as well. The question says the store has a markup rate of 60%, which means that the price is increasing by 60% and offers a 15% discount. Okay. Also offers a 15% discount. So it's increasing and decreasing. If a customer paid $48 for a shirt, what is the price the store paid for the shirt? Okay. So let the original price set by the store be X. So let the original be X dollars. But how much did the store pay? Because that's what the question said. So let's say the store paid a total of Y dollars. Okay. So initially, because there's a 15% discount, what do? In the case of a discount, we are going to write X minus 15% of X, or 15 over 100X, which gives us what? The customer paid $48 for this, right? So that gives me $48. And now what? Just like we did in our previous math, that of course automatically means it's 85 over 100X equals 48. So that means X equals 48 times 100 over 85. Let's just simplify a 100 with 85. If I take 5 here, it's going to be 17 and 20. So 48 times 20 over 17. Let's just write our answer in decimal. That gives me 56.47. $56.47. Now how much did the store pay? The store paid exactly this. So let's say, because it's a 60% markup rate, the price is of course going to increase, right? So because it's Y, I'm now going to do plus, because the price increased, right? Increased by 60%. So that's plus 60 over 100 of Y, and the total amount is going to be 56.47. So in doing so, 1 over 60 by 100 means 160 by 100Y. I just need to now continue to solve the value for Y. I can now actually do cross multiplication. So 56.47 times 100 is 5647. The decimal is now going to be removed over 160. So now if you just do the math and round it off, the answer is going to be approximately $35.29. Okay, so that is it for this question. Let's now move on to, we have another practice question here. Of course, they are asking for what? If they charge 80% more than, so maybe, yeah, there is a markup here, right? So I hope that you do get $9.90 after you're done. Moving on. Okay, uranium-237 decays at a rate of 50% every 6 days. By what percent will some amount of uranium-237 decrease after 18 days? So let's say initially the initial amount of uranium be X, okay? So after 6 days, what is the amount now? So after 6 days, the amount is now going to be what? Because it's decaying at a rate of 50%, we can say that after 6 days, let me just write it like this. It was X to begin it with. After 6 days, now it's 50% gone. So we can say that's now 0.5x. After 6 more days, okay? So if I want to say 6 more days, or we can also say in total it was 12 days, right? So after 12 days, that is 0.5 times 0.5 of x, because it's getting halved, right? So that means what? That means it's 0.25x. And again, because it's saying what's it after 18 days. So to make it 18 days, we need to go furthermore to again another 6 days. So after 6 more days, it's going to be 0.25x times 0.5. So if you do the math, it's going to be 0.125x. Now, what did the question say? The question said, by what percent will it decrease after 18 days? So this is the amount after 18 days. But initially, it was what? It was x. So by what percent did it decrease? So if I want to know that, I'm going to subtract it from the initial amount. So x minus 0.125x. If I do that, it's going to be 0.875x. Now what is this in a percentage? In a percentage, it's just going to be divided by 100. If you do that, it's now going to be 87.5%. So my answer to this is now going to be what? By what percent will it decrease? It's going to decrease by 87.5%. Okay? Let's now look at the next question. 860 chickens were on Billings farm. 20% of the chickens were sold to a neighboring Brockport farm, and 20% of the remaining chickens were sold to Luscious Fan. How many chickens are on Billings farm now? Okay, so let's say the initial number of chickens to start off was what? There were 860 chickens to start off, remember? So from that, 20% of the chickens were sold. So how many are left now? So to do that, we are going to do 860 minus 20% of the 860, right? So to simplify this, we can now cancel off the zeros and again these zeros. So 86 times 2, and then do a 860 minus 86 times 2. So that gives me a total of 688. Okay, so 688 chickens are now remaining. So now we need to know the number of chickens that remained after being sold to the Brockport farm, because after being sold to the Brockport farm, we have 20% of the remaining chickens that were sold off, right? So you can either do the same process once again, or you can just figure out what is 80% of 688. Okay, either of these work. So you can do 688 times 80%, or you could have done 688 minus 20% times 688. Both of these work. Okay, once again, you can now simplify this. 2 times 4, 2 times 5, and then further simplification, because what's the question really asking for? The question is asking for the number of chickens. So can number of chickens ever be in decimals? What do you think? No, we can never say I have 1.5 chickens. So because the answer came out as 550.4, there's nothing called 550.4 chickens, because 0.4 chickens don't really count. So we're going to cancel out that 0.4 chickens. So my final answer is going to be 550 chickens, rounding off to the nearest whole number. Okay, moving on. We have another question here. Once again, as you can see, the question is related to animals. So of course, whatever the answer that does come, you need to round it off. So I hope that you do get 80 animals as your answer. So moving on, survey results indicate that between 65% and 75% of high school students have their own cell phone. So it's between this and this. If these results apply to a high school of 900 students, what is the maximum number of students who do not own cell phones? Okay. So first of all, because the question asked for the maximum number, we are going to imply that maybe 65% of the high school students have their own cell phones. If we want to know how many do not have cell phones, of course we need to subtract. So subtracting a smaller number is most definitely going to give me a bigger result, right? So that is what you need to think about. So for that reason, from the total number, which was 900, I now have to do minus 65%, or 65 over 100 of 900. However, if the question were the other way around, let's say if the question said what is the minimum number of students who do not own cell phones, I would have subtracted 75% of it. Okay? So let's just now move forward with the question. That means I need to do 900 minus 65 times 9, which is 585. And doing that is going to give me 315. So 315 students are the maximum number of students who do not own cell phones. Okay. We're down to the last question of today. A department store is having a sale where a pocketbook is on sale for 25% off the retail price. So of course that means there's a discount. Jackie brings with her a coupon offering an additional 15% off the sale price. Another discount. The pocketbook's retail price is $4.20. So it was $4.20 to begin with. From the $4.20, there are two discounts that are happening. Then what? What will Jackie have to pay including sales tax if the tax is 7.5% of the final price of the pocketbook? First of all, from the initial $420, let's do 25% off. So we need to do minus 25 by 100 times 420. So if we do that, we can just simplify 25 and 100 with 1 and 4. Yeah? And then if you move forward, the answer is going to be $315. Once again, we have another discount, remember? So we need to do 315 minus 15% discount. So 15 by 100 times 315. Again, we need to simplify it. Let's simplify using 5. So 5 times 3 and 5 times 20. Again, simplify 315 with 20. That means 5 times 4 and 5 times 63. Now if you further simplify 315 minus 3 times 63 over 4, that is going to give you a decimal 267.75. Further, what will Jackie have to pay including sales tax? So including sales tax, if the tax is 7.5% of the final price. So Jackie of course needs to now pay 267.75, but on top of 267.75, she now needs to pay the sales tax. So what is the sales tax? 7.5%. So in the case of percent, let me just write divided by 100, and then you do times 267.75. Now, if you figure out the entire answer, it's of course going to be a little bit of a lengthy calculation. The final answer to this is $287.83. With that being said, we're done with this question. We have a final practice question for you here. I hope that you do get 630 students at the end. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. And with that being said, that was the end of this particular lesson. Hope you did really enjoy it. Most definitely leave a comment below to know how we can improve ourselves. And at the same time, if you did enjoy all of the maths that we have already covered throughout this lesson. At the same time, if you cannot afford really expensive one-on-one tutoring and personalized tutoring, here's a solution for you. You can actually download our SHSAT Prep app from Apple App Store. It has a lot of practice materials for you, and at the same time there's also a predictive test which is actually going to give you that real feel of attending an exam. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a comment below and practice well for your exam.